All right, guys. So, whether people agree with me or not, I'm always honest about what I believe is true. And if I make a mistake, I own up to it. So, this one is very complicated, though. So, in the last video that I made regarding Tommy Robinson and the far right, I will stand by the claims I made regarding um, Americanized or like American people or people that are like associated, that are like America adjacent, if you will. They make claims without knowing what's going on, and they ended up having to walk those back. Now, that's true because they just automatically took everything he said as like, oh, that's true. Like, and I do believe, I don't know for sure, I do believe that it's probably motivated by some sort of like ethnocentric sort of worldview. However, I'm in the middle of watching the Oxford Union address by Tommy Robinson, and it appears that there's a whole lot that I wasn't aware of. This is a far more complicated situation than I could have possibly known. So, with that being said, the things that I cited, the things that I claimed in the previous video are all true to the best of my ability to research. So, I stand by the claims that this is not a good person. This is not someone who just simply wants, you know, to share the truth and that's it. Like that's clear cut. That's the end. Like full stop right there. No, I stand by that. However, in being a person who claims that logic is paramount, it would be a fallacy to claim that because he's a former criminal, because he's been caught in numerous lies, etc., that it means he's 100% automatically wrong on every single thing he says. That's fallacious. That's not true. So it would be fine if he were giving anecdotes, which he does sometimes, and like relies on you to trust him completely because there's absolutely no evidence outside of his word, then I still maintain that the logical course would be to at least have a skeptical lens through which to view it. Because again, he has a history of lying. He's been caught lying numerous times. With that being said, this is very complicated shit. It's easy to just cast someone in as like a terrible human being, and that's it. And then everything they say is just complete bullshit. It's very easy to do. And to some extent, that's what I did. Because there is a lot of evidence that's kind of damning against him. However, every single premise, if you want to be logically consistent, every premise has to be evaluated at length. It sucks. It's not easy. It's complicated. It's messy. It's a pain in the ass, but that's necessary if you actually care about truth. So let me share the screen here. Now, to be transparent, I have not watched this entirely all the way through. This is a very long, it's like an hour and 8 minutes. So I've been kind of jumping around a little bit because before I usually put a lot of time, sink a lot of time into something, I need to know or have a kind of idea of whether or not I consider it legitimate or not. So there's various ways that I go about doing this. Usually I'll skim through different parts. I know this isn't perfect, but time is valuable. So I've kind of skimmed around. Now, I believe that it's possible that he's changed and he's not the same person that he was in the past. I'm still skeptical. But some of the things that he's claimed, I've tried to do some fact checking to the best of my ability, and some of these things have turned out to be true. So, at the very least, given that I'm not an expert on this, I have to say that this is way outside of my wheelhouse. This is far too complex for me to be able to weigh in on as an authority. Now, to be fair, I generally don't like present myself as an authority on anything anyway. I try to let my premises speak for themselves. But this is just me coming out and being honest. There's a whole lot more to this than I'm aware of. So here is one little deal. If I can get to it again, so he starts off going through some sort of anecdotal stuff about his personal experience, which I'll be honest, I don't take that seriously because he might be lying. I'm not saying he is, but it's possible, and he does have a history of lying. But
his friends left Luton after that incident. I could stand here all day and talk about other incidents that have gone on. I'm going to show you a video now. I'll ask you to watch.
A series of attacks on the homes of elderly people in Luton are racially motivated. The victims fear the aim is to force them to sit up and move out.
This is the latest attack, a beer keg thrown through the window of a 74-year-old great-grandmother in the middle of the night. It's the third time it's happened. The last was on Christmas Eve.
You can imagine Christmas Eve and somebody flinging a brick through your window, how it felt. When everything's supposed to be jolly and happy, you feel down, innit? And they are flinging brick through my window and run. They are cowards.
In the next street, another couple who've been targeted repeatedly.
At night time, I personally can't sleep, and you don't know what next they will do. You wonder sometimes if they're going to put petrol or boom or something through the letterbox.
And around the corner, this house. It looks unlived in. In fact, it's been home to one couple for 60 years, now so terrorised they won't take down the boards.
Because it always happened between about 1 and 4 o'clock in the morning. And you were really worried, sick, wondering what was going to happen next. Because they weren't just little bits of stones or things. These were real house bricks and lumps of concrete that they'd thrown through the window.
Meanwhile, families are doing what they can to protect themselves.
I am one of the old type, determined black woman. I am not going nowhere. If they don't like me here, they can go. I'm quite happy where I am.
Scared, but most of all angry, they're not moving.
so this is providing some factual data. So it's possible, though, that this is misleading. So we don't have all of the information. So could it be some freaking kids that are just asshole children? Because hell, we've had people in this neighborhood that is just like douchebags that freaking throw shit through people's windows just to be assholes. Because I don't know, they're like trying to show their friends that they're tough and badass or whatever. You know, I don't know. I really don't know. But this is starting to paint a picture of a problem. And so what I'm saying is, it's possible, is what I'm saying.
Now, again, maybe take it to the community you live in. You know these people, because I know the Palmers and I know the Howards. Yeah, you can imagine eruptions these sort of incidents cause in your community. There was actually 30 people's houses that were attacked at these times. There was 88 attacks before the police acted. The way we see, what we're seeing in the Rotherham report is it shows the police inability, conspiracy with the police and different organisations, social services, where they downplayed it and suppressed it.
I take that back. Well, partly. So it is still possible that it's some children or whatever, but it makes you wonder. It's probably not the most logical conclusion. And the reason why is because if it were just some kids, why would the cops not just deal with it? Why 88? So if to some extent, I'm kind of taking him at his word, because it seems like if you just went out to frickin' Oxford Union and just spewed bullshit, you're just setting yourself up for failure, because people could just fucking immediately call you out on all of it. To be fair, I haven't done that, and I haven't looked for responses or anything, but it is, from my perspective, beginning to seem more likely than not that there's an element of truth to this. I'll provide the link to this in the description, but I'm just kind of jumping around right now for the sake of
That forms your
time.
view and forms your narrative and makes you realize how deep this problem is in your hometown, the town that you love. And that, I want you to remember that I'm telling you stories as Tommy Robinson or Stephen Lennon. For every Tommy Robinson or Stephen Lennon, there's one of me. There's people in every town and city across this country who are feeling and seeing these things. So we have a soldier's homecoming. Scott Muntridge died. He's from the estate I lived in when I was younger, 26 years old. Michael Swain was 19, he lost his legs. Now, our soldiers are returning. I've gone to pay my respects that day because they've sacrificed that for us. As residents of Luton, they've gone there to fight for us, for our freedoms. I've gone there that day, and the first thing I've seen is a large police presence. I've then seen Saif al-Islam. I've seen groups of Muslim extremists around the town. I've seen 30 women together in burqas. It's quite a sight. But all of these things, I thought, what's going on? And then I saw this group of protesters, a group of Muslims, taken through my town hall. So taken through my town hall, and then the soldiers marched past. They were called baby killers, murderers, rapists, butchers of Basras. They spat in the lad's face, one of the soldiers' mum's faces, okay? Now, it wasn't this group done this, because bearing in mind, we know this group. I've looked into this group. I understand their hate. I understand where it's coming from. One of them, that group, the main ginger one, big ginger one with a big beard, he's a convert called Roger. Now calls himself Ibrahim. I used to hang around with him when I was younger. One of the other lads in the group, 2 years above me at school. This is not a million miles away from us. We get it. Yeah? It was the fact that they were allowed to do it. The police facilitated them in doing it. The council knew they were going to do it. They leafleted every mosque in the town, telling them they were going to do it. Intelligence showed that 360 Muslims were arrested attempting to come into Luton that morning. 360. 70% of their births were in countries outside of the UK. What we saw was an attack on our armed forces. I want to ask you, what would you have done? That's your town, okay? What would you have done at that time? Because I contacted the council. I set up a website called Save Luton. I documented that all the continuing things that this group have done in our town. I explained that when Jews were remembering the Holocaust outside our town hall, they had to barricade themselves and lock themselves inside the town hall because this group of large Muslim fanaticals were trying to attack them. In this video, there's a 5-year-old girl who's screaming and crying. They attack the multi-faith march every year. Now, in Luton and towns like Luton, when 2 kids continually cause a disturbance or a nuisance, you get an ASBO. Yeah? You ASBO them from hanging around together, and you ASBO them from an area of the shops. Okay? What we did is we set up a petition asking for this group to be ASBO'd. Quite reasonable. That's what you should do. That's what we did. 5 years later, you now see they're talking about ASBO terrorists. Exactly what we were asking them to do before any protests, before we took to any streets. Now, we know the police suppress what's going on in the town. We know the Labour councillors, you've seen it with Rotherham, are hiding the facts. We know what's happening in our own town. As I've said, we've foreseen ISIS. We've foreseen all these issues that are going on because we're living it. We're living amongst it. We're breathing it. It's where we live. And we decided then, every community in Luton is allowed to celebrate their identity and their culture. We have St. Lucian Day. When it's Paddy's Day, my mum was a Paddy, but when it's Paddy's Day, they have a 3-day festival. We have, when it's Eid, any Muslims come to Luton for Eid, because you will have fairgrounds, you will have the biggest celebrations, everything. St. George's Day, our day, okay? And I'm just trying to talk to you about how we feel in the town. So it comes to St. George's Day, Icknield School, the same school that the girl tried to wear the niqab to, sends a letter out to all the parents. If anyone brings in the emblem of St. George on St. George's Day, you will be suspended and sent home. The same school, when Pakistan won the cricket, encouraged everyone to celebrate with Pakistani flags. The message this sends to our kids is they should be ashamed of being English. They should be ashamed of their identity and who they are. Now, this happened 3 weeks after, and then the headline in our newspaper, St. George's Day parade banned.
So I have to admit that there's a lot I don't understand here. So I don't know if this is a valid analogy, but like here in the States, in the South, whenever we like act like we should be able to be proud of our history and stuff, and people use that to like defend the Confederate flag, which is obviously like known as a white power type symbol, and it's yeah. I'm sure most of you know where I'm getting at that. I don't know if there's anything similar to it associated here. So there's really just a whole lot of shit that I don't know. But he appears to be making the case that essentially you're not allowed to, at least in England, you can't, if this whatever he just said, whatever the day was that's supposed to be like their day, if it's benign and is not associated with any sort of like hate mongering or anything, so getting that out of the way, let's, for the sake of argument, say that it doesn't, then I have to agree with him. If that's true, then it's showing like an obvious sort of double standard, and it makes me go, why would they do that? Why? What motive? What benefit would the government have in doing so? Like, is it about what, getting votes? I don't know. So doing another little jump here and then I'll end this. This is interesting, and I might actually go through and watch this. I don't have as much time as I would like tonight, but still.
Group called UPL. Maybe, what would you have done? Again, what would you have done? Bearing in mind the National Front and groups like this, after the soldiers' homecoming, wanted to attach themselves to our town. Would you have made placards that read National Front go to hell? Because that's what we done. Voters demand a St George's Day parade. I want you to understand what this was over. What it was all over. This was the start. When we met up this day for this demonstration, it was the community. My aunties were there. We were met by a police presence, a heavy-handed police presence. A horse flattened my uncle. My other friend, Isaac, a little black lad, holding up one of these placards, reading National Front go to hell, a police officer on a horse.
So this was 9 years ago, and I do have to keep that in mind.
Knocked his teeth out, okay? He lost his teeth. We wanted to get to the war memorial. That's it. We were prevented from the police from getting to the war memorial. We were held and kettled for 4 hours. My auntie had to crouch, and we in the street. Now, I was there the day that Muslim extremists protested against our soldiers. When we turned up, we were made to line up against the wall. We had cameras in our faces. They put their hands in our pockets. They made us take our shoes off. Names, date of births, addresses. We felt violated by our own police force. Violated in a response where when Muslim fanatics were protesting against our soldiers, you didn't stop them. I was there. You didn't search them. You didn't harass them. You didn't harass their women. But you have us. So this now become about what we saw as oppression. We saw a two-tier policing system which we live under. Where there is an Islamic community, it's maybe not the fault of the Islamic community, but where there is an Islamic community, the police tiptoe around certain issues. We've seen it. You've read it with the Rotherham report. In that Rotherham report, you will read incidences where two fathers went to get their daughters back because their daughters were in a house being raped by Muslim men. When they went to get their daughters back, the police arrested the fathers. There was 5 Muslim men sexually abusing an 11-year-old child in a derelict house. The police turned up and arrested the child for being drunk and disorderly. These sort of stories could sound unbelievable, but they're real. And you need to understand that these stories are happening across the board in towns and cities. You need a report for Rotherham, get a report for every town and city in the country, because it's going on. So we had our UPL protest. Bearing in mind, we've been asking for petitions to have this group ASBO'd. What did the police do? After our first UPL protest, the police come to 14 of our houses. My mum's was one of them. I wasn't there. The other 13 people who were arrested were given bail conditions not to enter the town centre 7 days a week, 24 hours a day for 3 months. So we wanted these extremist radicals banned from our town. And why would we want them banned from our town? Because our mums, our sisters, our daughters, our families have to use that town centre. And when you use that town centre, this group, every single Saturday, have pace tables set up by Don Miller's Bakery. And that part of town's become a no-go zone because people don't want to get harassed by these lunatics. So we've had our first demonstration. They've given us bail conditions. That's when people would have seen our second demonstration, people are wearing balaclavas. I bought those balaclavas, and I'll explain why. I gave everyone the balaclavas because the 14 people who have been given bail conditions not to enter the town centre, all we wanted to do was walk through our own town, get to our war memorial, and show that the people of Luton support our armed forces. That's all we wanted to do. If the police would not have prevented us on the first demonstration, we wouldn't have had the second one, it wouldn't have progressed, and you wouldn't have seen the English Defence League. That's the reality of it. But the reality is, something like the English Defence League was always going to happen because there's these feelings, it's been suppressed, these things, this anger. So we're looking at this group, Al Mujahideen, who protest against our soldiers. I know their history. I then look and see that they're doing an Islamic roadshow across Britain. They're visiting every town and city. I think this, by now, at what stage do you draw a line? At what stage do you do something? They attack your soldiers. What's next? A soldier's funeral. We've seen.
There's a young man here who wants to become a Muslim. He's only 11 years old. What's your name, man? Sean. So Sean. شو هي أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
Many of the people in that video are now fighting for ISIS abroad. What they're doing there is they're outside Birmingham Bullring shopping centre. They're stopping an 11-year-old boy who's without his parents under a banner that says Jesus was a Muslim, and they've converted him, as you've all seen. Is there anyone in this room that thinks that's acceptable? That is not acceptable. Could you imagine the reverse if hundreds of radical Christians converted an 11-year-old Muslim child walking through the city centre without his parents? There would be uproar. So I watched this group do this, and I waited. And I thought, let's see what politicians, police, someone's got to do something. Nothing happened. Then, as a group of lads from Luton Town, we decided to leave Luton and go to the Bullring in Birmingham with placards that read, "What about Sean's rights?" Sean was 11 years old. We had placards that read, "Muslim, no problem. Extremist Muslim, big problem." We had one demonstration, no press reports, no media. We put it online. We decided to go back because we still felt people need to talk about this. This Islamic Roadshow had more dates going around the country. This has to be stopped. When we went back, subsequently, you can all research this as well. We were locked in a pub for 4 hours. When we come out, they put us on coaches to get us out of the city centre. We didn't know why. As they drove us out, I saw debris everywhere. Bricks, bottles, everything had been smashed up. Muslim youth, Pakistani Muslim youth, had been rioting for hours. Little did we know that Salma Yaqub, politician, had riled a crowd with a clenched fist, where she said, "We must smash the BNP, we must smash the BNP." Muslims then run through the streets, attacking non-Muslims. It later turned out that the local imam had told the Muslim youth to come out and confront us. We was only against Anjem Choudhury's group at this stage, okay? Who was coming out to attack us? Mainstream politicians. When we went to Birmingham, there were Nazis that turned up. There were Dr. Martins, and to us from Luton, anyone know Luton is a multicultural town, a very multicultural town. You won't find a Nazi in Luton, you can't find one. We've never had racial tensions, we have religious tensions. So for me, we've gone up there to highlight this issue, come under attack from everywhere. I'd ask, what would you do in response to Nazis turning up on the streets with you?
A message to Anjem Choudhury. We, the English Defence League, we will contest your kind as our forefathers did.
At this stage, not really much of a mention of Islam, because we're opposing Anjem Choudhury and his group. That's it. That's our tactics. Now we have Nazis on the streets. We need to let them know they're not welcome. On the first Birmingham demo, 5 Nazis were got put on the coach with us. One of them gave a Hitler salute as he got on. It kicked off when he got to the top of that coach with Luton's lads, yeah? So you have to realise, which I'll show you a video in a minute, where all his friends are talking about this fight that incurred, yeah? And it's a fight that incurred because we don't tolerate that. We would not tolerate that extremism coming from our community, but we see it tolerated in many communities. Now, when we set fire to swastika, not many other groups have done that. Not many other groups have really put it on Nazis. When this happened, I had a phone call from a man called Nazi Nick, a German. You can all Google him, yeah? I had a phone call and I was told to hand over the control of the English Defence League, hand over the websites, hand over this. I didn't know who he was. I told him in no uncertain terms that it was not going to happen. We had an argument on the phone. I'd highlighted myself to some of the world's most feared Nazis. I didn't know who this man was. Only later, my friend, when I was telling him about this Nazi Nick, some fella from Germany, he said, "You know who he is?" I said, "No." He said, "He tried to overthrow the South African government." That's why I thought, damn, I just put it on him. And from that, you can see this. I don't know if you want to read that. It says, "English Defence League, since the formation of your organisation, your alliance with external enemies, the Zionists, you have blinded the disgruntled youth to today with your bastardised concept of nationalism. Our concept of nationalism was anyone is welcome to it. White, black, anyone, Muslim, Christian. If you're proud to be English, you're proud of the laws in this country, you're proud of our freedom, you are welcome. You have attacked lone white nationalists. They wasn't on their own, but this is on about Birmingham. See, the press would not tell you that when there's trouble at the demonstrations in the early days, it's us outrooting the extremists. You have burned our swastika from the EDL and the 10. Anyway, I'll carry it on in a minute. You'll see. It's quite awkward viewing, but
EDL's coming into operation. They was giving it on the streets. EDL. That's what we fucking think we're doing. We're fucking strong. That's what we think of EDL.
So, could you imagine? As I walked in this building, all I've been called is a Nazi. Okay? We've softened what Nazi means. We've softened what a fascist means.
All right. I'm actually glad that I got to this point. So I've got to just be straight up about it. I'm not the type of person that's afraid to admit that I said some shit emotionally. That's something that I point out with other people. So I've got to have a little bit of self-awareness and realize that's exactly what I did. So many of the things I still stand by, like, you know, that like you should have like a certain degree of skepticism, being the history that this guy has. However, the information that I was given was very one-sided, and it didn't include really much of anything that I'm seeing here now. So I just have to say, I really don't have a fucking clue. I don't know. I really don't know. And it appears that there's a lot more that at least has some evidence to back it than I was aware of. Yeah, that's all. So what I want to do is specifically the claim that I made twice, that if anyone supports Tommy Robinson, they should automatically be disregarded from then on. Because obviously, if you're going to support someone like that, it's not about any facts or knowing anything. That it's just they're white nationalists. That's it. Now, to be fair, I very much believed what I was saying, but it appears that there's a whole lot more going on, and it's a lot muddier than I was aware of. So this would require a whole lot of research. Now, whether I will or not remains to be seen. I don't know. I'm going to at least dig more into this, but I at least have to take that back. I have to take back this automatic association that the moment anyone agrees with Tommy Robinson on any level, that's all you need to know about him. So I revoke that statement, and I figured I should at least do so live, or not live, but record it, because I at least owe that much, because I recorded the first statement that, yeah, I had no problem doing it then, so I should have no problem doing it now. I own my mistakes, and yeah, I'll do some more research, and I encourage everyone else to. I'll provide the link to this. Thank you for your time.